Okay, I'd like to pull the meeting back to order. Next is the old business, the application of 1001 Highway 71, Train Light Heights LLC, also known as Investor Savings.
Mr. Chairman, just before we start, I spoke to Mr. Francolino, who was out at the last meeting. He's advising that he has listened to the tape from the last meeting, and obviously then he's eligible to vote on the application.
Okay. Is there anybody else who was in that situation? Is everybody else at the last meeting?
Oh, I was here.
Everyone that's
Everybody
here
else
tonight was
Okay.
present.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, Thomas J. Hirsch, representing the applicant. So this call at the last meeting, we had put on our site engineer, and we were addressing the engineer's report. Question arose concerning the possibility of flipping or turning the building to address some of the site issues. Our architect testified as to various issues related to the building. We kind of took a time out and huddled, and there was some discussion, and indicated that we would go back and take a look. Obviously, had to talk to the client investors about the ability to change the background, which is obviously going to change the floor plan and everything else. But we did go ahead and presented testimony about the sign. There was a little demonstration about the latest sign, you may recall. We also had testimony from Mr. Chagong, who is representative of the bank, about the operation and hours and so on and so forth. So we tried to get as much accomplished as we could. Actually, the only two witnesses that didn't testify was our traffic engineer and our planner. However, you now have an amended plan in front of you, which we believe is consistent with the discussions that we had with the board and the board engineer at the last meeting. So I'm going to bring back my engineer to discuss. I'm not going to recreate the wheel here, but we're going to discuss the changes to the plan and how they affect the site. And then I'll bring back the architect to further discuss the architectural changes to the plan. And when we're done with them, we will then get to the traffic engineering plan.
And I'd like to thank you for being so cooperative.
Mr. Chairman, so my client appreciate that.
And Mr. Hirsch, just so we can confirm, all of your witnesses were sworn in at the last meeting along with Mr. May, regardless of whether they had testified yet or not.
Correct.
And they're still under oath.
So, Leonard, thank you. We agree with that. Okay, so I'm bringing back to discuss the new plan. Mr. Gallagher, our site engineer, who has indicated is on the road. All right, Mr. Gallagher. By the way, what I've done, I checked the board secretary. We're on A10 now with the next exhibit. So I marked the board to the right, which Mr. Gallagher will describe for the record as A10, and then the aerial to the left is A11, and we have a rendering the architect will be testifying to, which is A12, but we will be identifying those as we go. All right, Mr. Gallagher, so go to the revised plan, if you will, and I want you to essentially highlight the changes from the last plan so the board will understand where we're at today.
Actually, before I start, I'm going to put up the previous colored site plan rendering, just to show
What exhibit was that?
this was A6.
Yeah, thank you.
So just to show the direct differences between A10 and A6, which are the same type of rendering, just of the two different plans. The main concern raised by Mr. May and the board, we appreciated the comments, was to rotate the building in order to maximize the buffer and also to provide a bypass lane and generally just improve the overall circulation of the site. It was clearly feasible to do. Investors was on board with doing it, so that is what we've done. In terms of overall changes to the site, we were able to eliminate one variance. We had previously proposed building signs on each of the two front entrances. Now that we only have one entrance, we're only going to have one sign, which conforms. As I mentioned, we added a bypass lane through the drive-through area so that any vehicle not wishing to go through the drive-through lanes can pull aside and get through, in addition to facilitating the circulation of larger trucks, such as a fire truck or a garbage truck. We reoriented the refuse enclosure for better access. And we, to make up for some of the lost parking that was originally, you can see here, we added parking on the south side of the building and made this a two-way drive aisle, whereas this had fully been a one-way drive aisle in this direction, in the northbound direction. It is now two-way up to this point for better circulation and access. We've increased the buffers, which were previously 14 feet along this single-family residential property and 6 feet along the Fairway News property to a minimum of 20 feet along the single-family residential and 12.5 feet along the Fairway News property.
Mike, just so we're clear, that's the buffer, the size of the width of the buffer, but how close is the structure to the property line? The closest portion of the structure?
The closest portion of the drive-through canopy is an additional probably 16, 17 feet in addition to the buffer.
Thank you.
Otherwise, the operation of the site is generally similar. The access points were not relocated or modified in any way. Same number of parking stalls. Impervious surfaces are generally the same. We're still decreasing impervious surfaces from existing conditions. With the changes to the buffers, we're now increasing the buffers from existing conditions. And as I said, I think we've taken all of your concerns into account and presented a more compliant plan.
Mr. May, you have any?
I did prepare a review letter. I'm not sure how the application is proceeded, if they want to go through all of the items. I know we kind of cut short your testimony last time because the changes had a major impact. However, some of the items are still exist, or the comments haven't been addressed yet. I commend them for an excellent job of meeting the board's thoughts and ideas about how they want to see the site developed. And they have proposed a plan which in my opinion, believe is significantly better than the previously proposed plan. There are some issues, not issues, just some items we try to get on record. And if I may, I can go through my letter, and they may help expedite the process.
I just note that, I appreciate that. I thought we had covered most of the engineering. We are going to have our traffic engineer and planner cover some of your comments. But go ahead, why don't you indicate what you think before.
Item 2.1, the applicant here just buffer requirements of how they have actually increased the buffers.
Excuse me,
Item
Mr.
2 refers to the environmental investigations. I want to bring up a point on that. Our environmental commission has sent me a letter regarding some concerns they do have. I've spoken with their engineer. The concerns that were raised are valid points to a degree. The applicant has retained an LSRP. They are bound by the NJDEP guidelines. They are going to develop the site in accordance with the LSRP's requirements and recommendation of DEP. So I want to get that on the record. And if the application is approved, it should contain a condition that all construction will be in conformance with the NJDEP requirements for stormwater management, any dewatering that may or may not occur. But that is typically covered under our blanket resolution. If the Environmental Commission wants to speak after that further, then more than welcome. I did speak with the engineer, and you can,
What was it called, LSRP?
licensed site remediation professional.
Oh, okay.
Currently, the DEP's gotten out of the cleanup business, so they're requiring everyone, even the borough, to hire an LSRP. And they're obligated to report to DEP for the sites that are known contaminated sites.
And the applicant's conforming to whatever it is.
The applicant has hired an LSRP. They are going to go, they already have a permit. We're going to go through all the required cleanup processes. And our environmental committee was concerned, as we are, that they follow these guidelines, and they will be enforced. Previous testimony was given on the number of employees was a little fuzzy. We had a few applicants testify, 165, 166. If the applicant could just testify a little clearly, so we do understand the maximum number of employees on the site.
Six.
They also have provided a designated parking area that's the common quarters for their employees, which we did ask them to provide some area for employee parking, and they have addressed that comment. Item 2.4, they, on the last page of their site plan, they provided a turning radius plan or a turning movement plan, and there was one issue was that the vehicle overhang from the fire truck, when it navigated the site, would conflict with some of the shrubs, so they're going to revise that. We did get a letter from our fire department today. The issue they have is they showed the vehicles coming from the west. Our fire department is located east of 71, so they're requesting the applicant provide the fire department with a turning radius plan that would be able to navigate the site from 71 and from turning in off of Malaria Road if they, Warren Avenue, excuse me, if they have to come that way. And I spoke with the applicant's engineer. I reviewed it. I do not believe that's going to be an issue in the future, so they'll provide that plan to us.
So the radiuses look good.
Yeah, the radius look fine. But once again, and the other item, the fire department, they want to confirm that you actually typed in the fire dimension, the list of space. I'm not sure if it was the fire department deal based with, so we'll get that from them and they'll provide a plan that meets that requirement. 2.5 is one of my pet peeves, being code enforcement. We do have a ongoing issue in town with garbage pickup and commercial property. I just want that to be reflected in the resolution. Even though it's one of our ordinances, it's still much easier when the applicant sees it in writing, for me to enforce it later. This makes it a little bit smoother, it's just a housekeeping item.
And then, be specific.
They're only allowed to
Time.
have trash between 8 and 8.
Okay.
And currently we have one bank specifically that currently has a 5:30 pickup, which is very hard to get a trash management company to comply with our ordinance rules because I'm not here at 5:30.
Well, why not?
Item 2.6, the applicant has provided a vinyl fence with wood fence and color for the preference. Item 2.7, they have reviewed these boxes, and I see that they have replaced that portion of sidewalk. They're going to remove those valve boxes in the front along 71. Item 2.8 really rolls into 2.7. I would consider the applicant look at doing the entire sidewalk as part of the application because we're doing two things. A section of sidewalk on both Warren and a section on Lear Road for a clean and a better aesthetic looking project. They replace the entire sidewalk on both frontages in those areas, excluding the DOT repair that we just done before. The utility tank with regard to a fire connection, the fire department don't believe had any comment. I'll have to go back to that one. I excuse me for that. Item 2.9, if the applicant could just quickly go over the landscape proposed. Most of us, myself, I'm not familiar with botanical names, and a quick explanation of what's going to be planted would suffice. Just looking at the plan, the rendering, you can see they added significantly more trees. I think from curb appeal, the project is going to really spruce up the corner. And then now it's one of those spots in town where I do get a lot of complaints. It is a gateway to town. So they have, done a tremendous effort in dressing this corner up. 210, they have the color renderings. 211, the board has to decide how it felt about the sign last meeting, how it wants to move on that. My only comment on that is, again, from another view, that if this is permitted, it may cause that, well, he's allowed to do effect in town, which does happen. So I didn't want to set a precedence in that. I was concerned about that. So just we need to, however the board feels on that, we need to make sure that it's clear on the record why it was either yes or no.
This was the LED, the lights, the letters were red, right?
Yes. We've got the turning movers already. The buffers, they have provided evergreens in those areas, and they have, as they testified, we're going to remove any dead and dying trees in those areas, which is something more substantial and hardy. The borough's standard light. I don't know how the board feels if this is an area that they want to be implemented. It is a common item. As-built must be provided, they testified that's not a problem. And 216 I would ask the traffic engineer to address the drive-through and specifically discuss the need for 3 drive-through lanes. They have provided that 4th lane for bypass. Just want to clearly understand if the board is happy with 3 lanes or something.
I think the biggest concern was the buffer. And in that point, at that point, they did put.
The drainage review, actually no items have changed on there except for the amount of impervious is slightly, it was decreased approximately 5,000 square feet now. In the previous application, it's now decreased by 3,000 square feet. At any rate, it's still decreased. It is still not a major development. It is still exempt from stormwater management as far as the DEP is concerned. But the applicant is providing more landscape areas, and it will have less runoff at the end of the day. And I have nothing further.
We got a copy, that's a new report.
Yes.
Oh, we never got that.
June 18th, is it?
Yeah, Mike, or I thought you were reading from the old report
Oh, okay.
originally, and then I realized the numbers weren't matching up.
Okay.
But, by the way, the standard light is metal
Metal halide.
halide,
Rose quartz metal halide.
not sodium vapor.
Yes.
And I guess if they're coming out with LEDs now, as long as it's a white light.
With regard to,
I don't know whether those lights will come out with LEDs eventually. You know, an LED
or
rather than metal
our
halide.
lighting?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
but I would, as long as it's a white light, not that. So the other thing feels like you go into a sulfur cloud.
I guess when we get that, we need to discuss exactly the number of lights and where we should consider putting them on. The plan, their lighting plan currently does have lighting which is on the perimeter of the site. These are more decorative than anything, but at the same time, we need to be careful where we put them because it will not look good if we have it right next to one of their access lights, which are required Campbell Power for the park lot. I don't specifically think that our deck lighting is going to provide the lighting that will be required. So it's going to be a little bit of a challenge.
And I put those at 50 feet in.
Yeah, so, you know, we would probably look at putting one just south of the 71 driveway, south of that sidewalk, I would think, and potentially one adjacent to Contour 24 on Warren Avenue. That's still close to that light there. Somewhere up perhaps towards the entrance on Warren Avenue, maybe something to consider. I think we have to basically kind of field site them, to be honest with you.
So we can leave that, we'll leave that up to your
I
discretion.
say we recommend
I would prefer to see him on 71.
71 only? Okay.
I don't think you need it on Warren Avenue. I think it's 71 where we wanted the consistency
Yeah, they'll never
in the
develop.
streetscape. Because on Warren Avenue, you're not gonna develop that.
Okay, well, perhaps we can work with the applicant and, you know, maybe even implement 2 lights on 71 and eliminate one of his access aisle lighting if there's something that works with the photometric of the lights. Once again, he has addressed the turning movements for the garbage truck. It works very well now. We have provided the adequate screening buffers on that. I mean, the landscaping plan, you know, the trees, there's sticking to the trees in this plan. Overall, I'm very pleased with the plan, and I hope the board is as well. And I think it'll be a significant improvement for that one.
That's a huge improvement.
No more Tony the Tiger?
Well, I know one individual town will be very happy.
You know what? Okay. Any comments to that? I don't know. Sound like
No,
there's
just
much of a
that-
problem.
as I said, we hadn't seen this one, but, you know, everything, a lot of it was stuff we had touched on the first
Right.
time, a few extra comments, but we have, you know, we agree with everything, the engineer, so we can comply with those requirements. As I said, our planner is going to address the landscaping questions. We planned that, we still have our traffic engineer, not that we think much left on traffic, but we'll be here to answer any questions and give a brief summary of the circulation on the site. And we need something else. I think Mr. Dijon did cover last time the 3 drive-throughs, but I think you said that was as much of a concern
Yeah, I
now that we
think-
had the buffer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The biggest concern there was with the
So,
buffer.
yeah, if the board has no further questions this way, so I would just put our architect on, briefly review the architectural changes, and, sign things at that time.
Anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, before we continue, just one point real quick, I did double check, the fire department didn't have any comment on the signing connection or the sprinkler connection, and I'll just recommend that, in a resolution, that we put a point that, as part of the building permit application, that the fire department review that connection.
Yeah, that's the fire subcode official. that
Yeah,
usually-
yeah, Joe Valley. He had reviewed the plan, decided to use 11, but didn't comment on that.
Yeah, most of the time, it's whatever they say goes.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
Otherwise, they don't get
Yeah.
a see.
My
Now we have a choice.
You know, my concern was I didn't want to see the water line in, and then, you know, when the close already, and all of a sudden the fire department determines that they don't have capacity for sprinkler system, now we have an issue. And we're cutting up the road with,
All right, anybody else has questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call Mark Haas, our architect, again, still on the road. Mark, I marked the rendering, the elevation there as 812. If you have an issue with this in the floor plan.
Mr. Hirsch, we identified a 10, did we ever identify the 11?
Here, no. Which one? You're talking,
A11, whatever one
Because I know we identified 10.
there.
Yeah, essentially, that's just the site plan, the same rendered site plan superimposed onto the show surrounding uses and characteristics.
house. Two more elevations for the A14.
I'm sorry, what was that?
This is, A14 will be, which elevation
The
today?
A12 is the rendering,
Okay.
A13 is the floor plan, A14 is one set of elevations new, and
Which elevations are they?
that's the front that faces 71, and this is facing Warren.
All right, so A15 is facing Warren Avenue, 14 is facing 70. All right, so, Mr. Ross, you know where we're at here. We made changes to the building, and I just, that's what I want you to focus on, the differences from last year.
What we did is we rotated the building. It used to be lengthwise long. We've turned the building. We used to have two entrances here, now we just have one entrance. And basically,
That's
it's on-
facing 71.
Yeah, it's facing 71 and Warren. It's on the corner of 71 and Warren Avenue. You walk into the branch, there's a waiting area, you walk through, there's 4 teller stations. What we have regarding the drive-up lanes, we have a drive-up ATM and a drive-up night drop in the first lane, and that's it. Second lane is an overhead tube system, third lane is an overhead tube system. And that's pretty standard in all the branches I build these days. There's no drive-up window like you normally see. These tubes actually go overhead and back to an alcove at the teller. This teller can now work the lobby when the lobby's busy and does not have to drive up, or work the drive up when the drive up's busy. So it's more efficient, more economical. That's why there's only 4 tellers. You go into a lot of the other branches, there's 6+ teller stations. So technology is changing a little bit. You also don't see a vault. We use prefab vaults. So like in the safety deposit area, it's a prefab vault that has your safety deposit boxes. Cash for the bank is portable again. They're like the size of a refrigerator. So you won't see that prefab vault with the vault door in a lot of these branches. Clear systems, furniture, places for the personnel to sit, one manager's office, shared conference room, another office. Then we got the lunchroom, the ADA, accessories, toilets, things of that nature. But basically by turning it, we were able to get the nice windows along 71. And the reason the entrance is more over this way is we get the nice windows, frontage on Warren, so they get to advertise and everything like that. And our main building sign, which would be here,
It's on
is facing 71, so you still get signage on 71. It's only one sign. If you just, before I talk about the elevations, here's a rendering, and basically the building is very simple. We have brick piers going up between the windows, and even where there aren't windows, the brick piers continue. We have a precast design on the base, and a similar precast design over the windows, and that rotates around the entire building, even in the back. So the back has the same architecture, just no windows. So it's a nice looking building on all 4 sides. What you also don't see is you don't see any rooftop units in this. The rooftop unit is actually behind this domed area, and we have a parapet back here, and it's hidden. So what you see on these elevations in front of you is actually what's going to be built. You're not going to be surprised by anything. Everything's hidden from view. So the architecture on these elevations is identical to what we built on this site. We just have the precast up above, we have a dome, we have clear glass, and we have anodized aluminum frames. It's a very simple design, and the rhythm of the piers, again, goes all the way throughout the entire design. So when you're looking at the front, the sides, the back, has the same kind of fenestration throughout the entire building. Here is the elevation facing 71. At the top, we're 25 feet high. Most of the buildings are about 17 8. And again, all the exhaust fans, the roof line is right about here. So all the penetrations, vents, exhaust fans, the major HVAC units, all hidden from there. This is the side from the parking lot. This is the back side with the drive-up and the drive-up canopy. And this is, again, we've got all the windows along Warren. We had to redesign the floor plan a little bit because we wanted all the windows on the streets. So Route 71 and Warren have all the nice windows, you can see into the bridge, you can see what's going on. So by shifting things around or manipulating the floor plan, you're able to get the same programming, just having the structure. It's quite simple.
That's all I have.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I have one simple question. Well, with regard to the AC units that are on the roof, they have drain lines. Those drain lines, will they be tied into a storm drain or some area? I do have an application we did a few years ago with that, and there'll be a problem after construction, and it's still a problem to this day. The lines sweat, you know, they're onto the sidewalk, and so that's it.
I believe our roof drains all the way down the ground to the catch basin.
Okay, great.
So you don't see the unit, you don't see any of the roof drains, but we go underground through the building and out to the street.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the electrical stuff is going to be tied in. I mean, excuse me, the HVAC stuff is going to be tied in.
Yeah, it's right on the roof, so it's part of the roof, so everything goes onto the roof and goes into the drain.
Okay.
So we don't have any issues.
Have been drains to the street
They
rather
drain,
than an underground?
we have drains on the roof, go down through the wall, out, there's a catch basin on the corner of Warren and 71. So it goes underground and it connects into that catch basin. So you don't see it, and it goes right into the CD, which is really where you want it. We don't want it going out at the site, we definitely don't want it draining on the drive-up area, it creates ice and problems for cars, for doing business. So it's the best way for us, it's the best way for you.
I was thinking more along the lines of what they did at bank down the highway a ways. They put a big perforated pipe under the parking lot.
They didn't want to do that because of the contamination.
Oh, okay.
The site was contaminated.
Okay. Is there the availability for the bathroom access for customers?
Yes, yeah. If you look at the floor plan, the first bathroom,
They're allowed to go back
see,
in there?
yeah, see this alcove?
Mhm.
Customers can go all the way back here,
Okay.
use the booze, boxes, and this first toilet. Then there's a door for the second toilet and the lunchroom, which is personnel.
Oh, okay, okay.
And then like we have a waiting area, this is for all the customers to come in, we got a community wall, we got a coffee bar, it's a nice, it's almost like a Starbucks. All I gotta do is add Wi-Fi and we're good. So.
I don't know whether, maybe I should ask the engineer about the sprinkler system for the.
It's,
That's usually for code.
it's not required,
I
this
understand.
is 2C construction, and I'm only 3,200. I'm over 5,000, we gotta have sprinklers, so we haven't put a sprinkler system in any of these branches anywhere.
Not in the building, I was talking about the truck
Oh, outside.
outside.
There will be a lawn irrigation system, yes.
Oh, great.
We
I
put that in, we
misunderstood.
put that in
What-
every.
Is it gonna be well driven or city water?
It's gotta be
That's
public,
all.
because of the contamination, it needs to be public.
Okay.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Investors puts those in on every project,
Great.
not an issue.
Anyone else?
All right, our next witness is Maurice Rochet, traffic engineer. And Maurice is also on the road, even though he didn't testify at the last hearing. All right. There was only a couple of issues, I think, originally in the engineer's report about site circulation. I think you've heard that, turning radiuses. Why don't you just address from your viewpoint what, if any, traffic impacts the development has?
So, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
I'm sorry, I should qualify Mr. Rochet.
No, you don't. He's been
Okay,
here before us
thank
before,
you.
so.
Good to be back. Let me start by saying this was a good site plan. It became a great site plan. And for a traffic engineer, I'm very, very pleased to see that with the modifications, we have a very intuitive circulation. We have sidewalks all around the building in the front, so no matter where you park, you have access to the sidewalk to go into the building. The intensity of the site is going to diminish greatly between the gas station and the bank. If you want to use the numbers, the gas station has the potential of generating about 220 trips in the morning. The bank is about 20 to 30 trips. So the intensity is about 7-8 times less. We did submit to DOT. We were deemed complete. We recently received a letter with a couple of minor comments. They wanted some drainage calculations and some very minor comments on the striping for the crosswalks. In terms of the access, there is also an improvement. Today, the site has 4 driveways. We're reducing that to 2, as far from the intersection as possible. That's an improvement. The parking is more than adequate. The ordinance requires 13 parking spaces. We're providing 17. That includes 2 handicap parking spaces on every side of the building. And they're all 9 by 20. The aisle width is sufficient. It's 24, and where it's one way, it's 18. That is very, very adequate. The refuse pickup is awesome, actually. You go in, you pick up the unit, and then you back up and continue to one of the other exits. So that works very nicely. I looked at the fire circulation. I understand your engineer's concern. It will work. Internally, we have space, and the other driveway is just as wide, so that should be no issue at all. The drive-through, and that's my last comment, by the way, it's now even more adequate than before. You have a bypass lane, which is 12 feet. That's your standard highway lane, very wide. You have 3 other lanes. There is storage for approximately about 12 cars, which for banking today, that's more than adequate. And not only I've done a lot of banks in my career, but my wife is a banker, so I know exactly how they work inside and out. So, Mr. Chairman, that's my testimony for tonight.
Okay, and I guess, what is it, county DOT and state DOT?
State DOT.
Oh, just state?
Yes.
Warren is a county, isn't it?
Warren's county.
But I'm not aware of any application with the county. If you need information on that, the site engineer, I handle the DOT application.
My understanding that they go through the application to the county planning board, once they get approval from our board,
Oh, okay. All right.
or sometimes simultaneous, but hopefully that's the routine.
Anybody have any questions?
Matter of curiosity, did you do a count in terms of the number of vehicles that pass by on going northbound 71 or westbound Warren?
No, but I did a count, which I felt was more important, of the station itself. And I reported to you earlier that there is a potential of 220 trips based on national standards. I counted less than 220 in the peak hour. I did a spot count, and I counted roughly about 130 an hour, which is still a very large number that you're going to see reduced to a very, very minimal number. And at that point, having signal there and having the trips being reduced to a very insignificant level, I think that corner is going to operate much better.
Can I ask a question? I don't know if you're the appropriate person. Just about a couple of markings on the site as far as the roadway. Like I noticed on our map, it didn't say on the Warren Avenue side that the cars were going 2 ways. I didn't realize that. But then I was wondering whether there should be a stop sign at the end there. You've got stop sign.
There is.
There is?
Yeah.
It doesn't say it on there.
There is a stop sign, and if you look at sheet, let's see.
The one I was looking at, I don't know.
Yeah, it shows not only a stop sign, but a stop bar and the actual symbol
Right, that's
word.
going out on Warren Avenue. I meant back where the parking spaces are, so you don't come in.
Where you have the drive-through lanes come out, and there's that little, you have a stop sign at the end of the
We
drive-through
do have one
lanes.
too. We also have one, you mean right in this area at the end of the,
Right-
Mrs.
right
Allenberg
there.
was talking about right here.
yes, we
Do you
have
need
one.
it?
Oh,
You do
so
have
it
one.
wasn't
Yeah.
on the.
We have a stop bar and a stop
Okay, I
symbol
didn't-
as well
sorry.
on the ground.
The other thing
Yes.
I was wondering is, do you have I know some banks do signs or directionals to where the ATM is located?
We do
I didn't see
have,
anything like that. I mean, you
several-
have where it is over here, but like if you pull in on Warren Avenue, how you would get to it.
Right, there are actually a couple of directional signs on site. And if you look at sheet number 3, I believe, that shows the signs.
I believe, the Navy signed that.
Right, FF is one of the directional signs, correct.
I don't see it.
Oh, wait, we'll see
You
it.
see it? Oh, there it is, there it is. So as you come in.
Oh, wait. All
It's in a
right.
hexagon, and then you have a legend.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
People are changing glasses on the board, I know we got an issue.
One other question, one other quick thing. Just when you're coming in off Warren Avenue, make, so it's clear that they have to make a right turn. Even though I know it says do not enter and all, but like make sure that arrow, you know, so.
We do, ma'am, and again, it shows, if you can see it, I'm zooming in very large.
Oh, okay,
There
yeah,
is
it's
a
hard to,
clear-
yeah, it's all hard to tell.
There it is.
Right, okay, all right, that was it.
I think this is a first where we've had the plans on an iPad. We just zoom it up.
Actually, I'm going to announce today that for the iPad, you could do street view. It just happened today. So you can actually see the views, the pictures of the buildings on the iPad.
Before this meeting is over, there'll be a new app.
That's right.
3 minutes.
So I can get my iPhone, and I can download
I
it.
haven't updated my iPhone.
Did the state recognize or question the turning north from the north entrance?
No, they did not. Again, all their comments were very minor comments on adjusting some of the notes on the plans, on providing some more drainage calculations. The one thing they did request that the board should be aware of, they did not want the stripes in the crosswalk, which I was disappointed, but it's in the state right of way, they just want the 2 lines. And I believe we're going maybe to try to convince them, and in the end, we may acquiesce to their wishes and give them the striping they're asking for.
But they had no comment of restricting turning north on the north?
No, they did not.
As far as the corner of, I guess going south on 70. 71.
71.
71. Going south on 71, the site triangles, the signage, any kind of landscaping that we have, is that all outside of the site triangle, or is it?
Yeah, actually, Mr. Chairman, if you, again, look at one of the plans, it's difficult to see. We do have a side triangle shown on the plan, and it shows that the area is clear. There is, of course, the stop sign, which is not an interference. There is one tree that is kind of borderline at the end. Maybe we can push that, a couple of feet to make sure it's outside the side triangle. But other than that, it's a very clear area within the side triangle.
And how high is the sign?
The stop sign typically.
No,
The sign on the corner.
the sign on the corner.
I don't have that information.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I thought I saw it was 12 feet.
5 feet. 5 feet.
5 feet.
That's
I
right.
still have a problem with that. That's a very busy intersection. We have right turn on red, we have school crossing there, and with the shrubbery and the sign right out on that corner, I have a problem with the visibility there. It's also a smart light, which sometimes people see the arrow and it's green, so they go.
As a business, that's a key point for the sign. I think for a business, that's a key point for the sign to be.
Oh, I understand that, but for the safety, the driving and pedestrian part,
But that's why I asked about the state approval.
Let me address that point. It's a very good point, by the way. May I?
Sure.
Yeah. The intersection is signalized. And when intersection is signalized, the side triangle becomes not needed. And as a matter of fact, we don't do side triangles at signalized intersections because the signal itself assigns the right of way. However, you do raise a couple of good points, and I did look at them. In terms of pedestrian operation and pedestrian visibility, nothing can obstruct that, and it doesn't. The sign is set back about 10 feet, so if you're coming southbound on 71, the sign will be far from your field of vision as you're trying to look for any conflicting pedestrians. So the sign would be at least 10 feet to the right. And it shouldn't interfere with any type of sight distance. So if you're doing a right on red, you have to look in the other direction, to the left, and see if there is any conflicting traffic coming from the left. So when you look at all the different factors, I don't think the sign will be an issue at all.
Well, the one part that I see that could be a problem would be turning right on red off of Warren Avenue. Because the stop line, if I to go by the plan, is quite a ways back, and if you're looking down the highway to see if the car is coming, you'd have to creep right out almost into the traffic lane in order to make that turn safely.
But that's signalized, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's your left turn, but you can make a right on red here. But you'd have to creep all the way out almost into the line of traffic and across the crosswalk in order to be able to clearly see down the highway past the shrubbery. I like the idea of the shrubbery and such and everything, but that's a little tight there, in my opinion.
No, you are correct. But what drivers do at a signalized intersection, it's a two-step process. You first stop at the stop bar, and then you inch forward, look for any conflicting traffic, and then you proceed. From the stop bar, there could be some visibility issue, but that's really far back, and no driver is supposed to make a decision at that point. So once you inch forward, then you have clear visibility, because I took a look at the intersection, and in my opinion, a driver should be able to make a good judgment once you inch forward a little bit closer to the intersection.
Once you go past the stop line.
You go past the stop bar, yes, sir.
Proceed out, yeah.
Actually, I believe that's a good spot for a no turn on red sign there anyway.
It's a good.
I always thought so.
God help you to get the station to the county.
What is the height of the
Yeah,
bottom of the
both
sign?
of them together, that's not bad.
Typically, the height to the bottom of a stop sign is 7 feet.
No, the sign we're talking about.
Oh, the sign, I wasn't involved in placing it or designing it, so the site engineer would.
Top of
That's
it.
it's a ground sign.
Oh, it's okay.
It's 5 feet high, it's a ground sign, yeah.
So the sign's 29 square feet, right, correct? Somewhere that's all that. So that's 3 by 13, or whatever. And then we have the shrubbery and stuff planted around it.
Mr. Miller? No. He sits back, he's too far from the mic.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, I should ask, is there anybody in the audience that has a question of the traffic engine? Is there anybody in the audience that has a question of their architect? Do you also testify?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Would that pertain to
Excuse me,
the
sir.
lighting facilities of the architect?
Yeah, you can ask that.
Yeah, I live a couple properties.
Just give your name and your address.
I'm on Magnolia Court in Fairfield,
In your-
Cherokee. And I'm just concerned about the lighting. Does that subside overnight after certain hours, or does it stay illuminated, and does it shine very far away from the site, creating a lighting?
don't mind.
Jerry Caton, I live on Magnolia Court in Fairway Views, within 200 feet of the site. And just concerned about the lighting at night, because bedroom windows, patio, and so forth on my property. And I wondered if the lighting stayed at the same level all during the night, or did it subside after a certain hour?
Yes, Mr. Gallagher, our engineer.
There are the canopy lights underneath the drive-through area. The ATM, drive-up ATM is a 24-hour ATM, so that light has to stay on for security purposes. And then there'll probably be one or two site lights, the pole-mounted lights that are left on strategically, to provide safe ingress and egress from the site. But otherwise, after business hours, the site lights do get turned on.
Those lights are shielded?
Yes, they also all have house-side shields. And I think at the property lines, it's 0.1 foot candles, which is very, very minimal.
Do you have a landscaping plan to show that gentleman?
Sure.
I think you would see the wonderful abundance of landscaping.
That's also correct.
There's
It's
one,
incredible.
there's gonna be a buffer, which is good.
Additional buffer, they're putting in an extra lane.
They're putting in a lot of, no, they're putting in a lot of planting.
Yeah, they have the ATM lane, two two lanes, and then you just added another lane, I think I heard tonight.
Right.
So you have extra buffer.
You're not gonna get
Yeah, this is covered. And then we have all of this landscaping, most of which is evergreen
Gentlemen,
plantings.
get by the mic so the record picks it up, please.
We have, as Mr. May mentioned, we have significantly increased the amount of plantings within the residential buffer, and that'll also further cut down on the amount of light that escapes the property lines. But, as I mentioned before, it's 0.1 foot candles, which in a paved area, you're required to have 0.5 foot candles as a minimum. You generally want to have around 2 foot candles for safety. So at the property line, it's practically non-existent from an illuminance level at a certain, height off the ground. And then when you factor in the fence and the trees, I really, it's my opinion, won't be any impact.
May I ask just another little question?
Sure.
This is the garbage disposal?
Yes.
Sir, keep your voice up on that mic.
Just try to get a little closer.
Garbage disposal
Yes.
area, and this is the new lane that you've added since the
Correct.
last meeting, which affords even more buffer, because I think maybe it pushed the building.
Yes, this was 6 feet before, now it's double the size.
All right, I'm very pleased with the answer, thank you very much.
And that trash pickup can only be
8 to 8.
8 to 8.
I like to.
Thank you, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, before we move forward, the president actually brought up a good point. Will all 6 canopy lights be underlighting from canopy beyond 24 hours, or just the 2 in the ATM lane?
All. They're recessed, so there's no glare from those lights. They're actually recessed about a half inch. The lights are recessed about a half inch into the canopy soffit, so there's no glare, they're basically directional lights.
One clarification.
Great thing.
Can't do
Karen Crookham, 564 Atlantic Avenue. I want to thank Mr. May for addressing environmental issues. I have reached out to the DEP Site Remediation Department. Obviously, I have some concerns because the location.
If I could just, excuse me, are you going to be asking a question?
Yes.
Or are you going to be commenting? Because if you're going to be giving testimony, I have to swear you in.
Oh, I had questions.
So it's strictly questions at this point.
Okay, I can do that.
I mean, if you're gonna make a statement, that's okay, but I just need to
No,
swear
I
you
was
in.
just going to thank Joe, but I can ask
Okay.
questions. I had a question about the location of the ground wells and also the location of the catch basin. I don't know who. Okay, is the can I see on the drawing someplace where the ground walls are located and also where the catch basin is?
Certainly. They're actually identified, there's these little circles, it's an M. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay, and the catch basin?
Sketch basin is up corner.
Oh, okay, so it's all there. Okay.
It's existing.
Okay, you're going with the existing one, okay. And I understand that you do have an LSRP involved, so, and it does look, I do have your copy of your groundwater permit here, and it looks like you were already the co-permittee, so it looks like it was already transferred, and I guess the LSRP is going to be doing the modification for the use changes on it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sure,
it's-
yes, we usually don't get involved in that process. It's usually just between the LSRP and the
Okay.
DEP review board, yes.
Okay. And
But obviously, it's a much more environmentally friendly use. so.
yes, and I was just wondering, do you know, because the LSRP obviously is not here, do you know they going to be installing carbon canisters for the stormwater, since it does need to be treated somehow before it goes into the drains?
I don't believe so. The stormwater and the issue at this site is groundwater contamination,
Yeah.
and surface runoff doesn't have any interaction with the groundwater, so there's no need to treat the stormwater, because the issue is under the ground, the stormwater never gets there.
Okay, that's in contradiction to what I was told by the DEP today. They said that with the known contaminated site, the stormwater does need to first be treated before it's discharged into the
That's
storm
if it's,
drains.
that's if it's stored underground or
No.
in any detention basin. I disagree with the person you
Okay.
spoke to.
Well, I have his name and number here if you want it, so, and also that you would be following up with any dewatering permits?
Absolutely. If any of the contaminated groundwater is encountered during construction, it would be disposed of in the appropriate manner.
And with all these plantings that you put in, was any consideration given to turning into one of them a rain garden so that you might be able to direct the runoff into that area instead?
There's really no adequate place to put one that wouldn't impact one of the neighbors, and I obviously didn't want to do that. The majority of the stormwater under existing conditions just sheet flows off the pavement into the streets, and we wanted to continue sending it there rather than diverting it towards residential use.
I think we know it flows into the street after a week or so ago when that intersection was flooded again. That's like a notorious spot, so that might be something. We actually, the Environmental Commission has someone on board who is a certified rain garden specialist, and you might want to reach out to him as a resource to see if there's a way to redirect some of the water into one of those plantings, and then that way it wouldn't affect your neighbors and it wouldn't affect the intersection either.
I appreciate that.
Anyone else have any questions? Anybody on the board, nobody in the audience?
Okay, the last witness is our planner, Mr. West. Hi, Brian. You too are under oath, and you know you have not previously testified. Have you been qualified?
I have been, but it was several years ago, and it may have been the zoning board, I can't be 100% sure.
You're a licensed professional planner for the years.
Yes, I am.
Would you like me to give,
No, that's
you're
fine.
satisfied that you'd like to? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, why don't you, there's a couple of issues that we were talking about planning. One was the landscaping, we discussed that. So
Sure.
why don't we discuss the landscaping, answer some of those questions, and then we'll go into the variance part of it.
Second, pick up the landscaping. Give you some details. Good evening. It's been mentioned several times before that this project is going to clean up the corner. I firmly agree with those statements from everyone who said them. In fact, it's very rare when I'm working on a plan that the client comes back to me and says, you only gave me minimal landscaping. I want more. I want to really make this look good. And that's exactly what happened here. I had met the ordinance requirements to the greatest extent practical, and the client still said, give me more, I want this to stand out. The idea behind the landscaping is to provide a dynamic landscape that changes through the seasons. Something that's not static, it doesn't look the same every day of the year. There's evergreens to keep it interesting in the wintertime. There's perennials that are going to bloom at certain times in the spring and summer. There's deciduous trees, there's flowering shrubs. As you look at this site, just about every month, it's going to look a little bit different. It's going to add some interest, it's going to be colorful. There's a mixture of textures, colors, heights, just a lot to give it interest. A prime concern was the buffer area. Whenever we develop a commercial area next to a residential area, one of the things we look for is how do you protect those residents? Sometimes just putting up an evergreen is not the correct answer. They're wide at the bottom, they're skinny at the top, they don't always provide what you're looking for. In this case, we're putting a solid vinyl fence along the entire property line, which pretty much covers everything from 6 feet down that you're not going to see. Then we added some evergreens that will, over time, grow up over the top. When they get planted, the tops are going to be almost even, a little bit higher than the top of that fence. They're not going to have a great impact for buffering the neighbors. The fence is already doing that. Over time, though, those trees are going to grow up, and they are going to provide a substantial evergreen screen. In the meantime, we're supplementing that with deciduous trees. So at least for 8 months out of the year, you've got a big tree head that's going to block your view. And that tree head's going to be above the fence level from day one. So you get an immediate impact from the landscaping and a long-term impact that just keeps better and better. The screening ability just gets enhanced over time. Like I said, there's a variety of colors, textures. There was consideration to the site triangle at the corner as far as the landscaping goes. And all the plants that are around the base of that are real low junipers. They don't reach a height of greater than 18 inches. So it's not really going to impede the visibility. The one street tree that was questionable whether it was in the site triangle, it's actually going to be branched at 7 feet high, so you're going to see under the head while you're driving. All your site triangles, your site visibility stays completely clear.
All right. The other, I think with the question we had on the, which I think you answered two, one was discuss the landscape plan, the other was whether there would be sufficient buffering in the winter months, and I think you covered that, and I think that was touched on by the board engineer that we added the evergreen. There was 2 variances. I believe that's all we have at this point. We changed one of them on the signs, and we don't have the additional signs. And one is the question we sort of presented to show on about the internally illuminated sign. And I don't know if that was a variance or a waiver, quite frankly, but in either event, can you address, you saw, of course, the presentation, and from your planning perspective, and you've heard the board's concerns about that, you give the board your opinion from the planning perspective, how that, whether that would have any detrimental impact if we had that now, of course, only for one, see it now. And the, essentially the one currently illuminated sign. Oh, we have the ground sign also.
Mr. Hirsch, I would assume that that's a variance.
I'm sorry?
So I would assume that that is a variance.
Yes. The internal illumination.
Yes. It's actually one variance and one waiver. In this town, the buffer relief that we're seeking is actually a waiver. What we're providing is a 12.5-foot buffer, or 8.3% of the lot depth, where 20% is required. It's actually an improvement over the existing conditions. The existing building that's on the site is only 9.5 feet from the property line. So once you take that out, we're increasing the distance, you're putting in a solid fence, you're enhancing it with landscaping. Even though it's still a variant or a waiver condition, it will be an improvement over the existing conditions, and I believe it's going to meet the intent of the ordinance because it does provide a substantial protection to the residents that are adjacent to us.
And of course, we more than meet the side yard setback.
Correct.
Itself,
Correct.
Which would have been a variance, so this is just a waiver.
Correct.
So the only other variance is the internally illuminated sign.
Right, the sign illumination is an actual variance, where the ordinance requires external illumination. We're providing internal illumination. What's different about this lighting than what you may have seen in the past, and it was demonstrated last month, is that it's an LED light with the individual channel letters that are lit up. It's not a big box can light that you're used to seeing. It's kind of a breakthrough in the sign industry because now you have LEDs that you can do this. In the past, you couldn't get a fluorescent bulb that would wrap around an individual letter. And the only other way to do it would have been with neon, which we all know how that looks. So my opinion, the LED that's being proposed will be in taste. It's consistent with the architecture of the building. It has a benefit that when you have a ground sign with spotlights on it, landscapers are known to hit them with their mowers, kids move them around, and what can end up happening, particularly on a road frontage, is those lights get moved and they end up shining directly into the light, creating a problem. Whereas if the lights are with an internally illuminated light, you don't get that problem. It's fixed, it's not a glary light, they control the levels of it. So I believe, even though it is a variance, I believe it's tastefully done, and I believe it's consistent with what the borough would like to see.
For maintenance purposes, what's the life of, say, these LED lights? What's the average replacement, that's needed?
I don't know the exact term. I do know that LEDs in general last about 10 times longer than a standard bulb. So the maintenance on it, again, compared to what a standard fluorescent lamp would be, is going to be substantially less.
And it would be reduced glare from these.
Much reduced glare.
Essentially, it's your position as a planner that the grant of that variance would be a better zoning alternative, essentially a C2 variance.
Correct.
And in terms of the variance relative to the buffer, in your opinion, based on your testimony, would that, grant of that variance have a substantial detriment to the surrounding properties?
No, again, the buffer is actually a waiver, and it is an increase over the existing condition. It's consistent, in my opinion, consistent. I don't believe either the light or the lighting variance or the buffer waiver would have a substantial impact on the zone plan, the zoning ordinance, or the master plan. And I believe both relief can be granted for both conditions without substantial impairment or negative impacts to the public health, safety, and welfare.
That's all I have.
Anybody have any questions?
My question is about the ground sign. Could you describe the ground sign? I believe you've described the illuminated channel letter sign that is on the building.
The ground sign.
I didn't see any description of the ground sign.
Okay, my understanding, the ground sign is going to be exactly like the building mount sign. It's still going to be the illuminated channel letters. It's just mounted on a ground plaque instead of on a building.
So it's basically what was described to us by the sign guy last time.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just the illuminated letters.
Correct.
Not the whole,
Yeah,
not
right.
the whole background.
It's just,
And it's illuminated like we showed last time, it's illuminated the same way.
If you look at sheet 12 in the top left-hand corner, it's tucked up there. On the top end of the sign, in the it's brushed aluminum finish on the top, so the top third is aluminum, the bottom is polyurethane finish. It's clean and silver, is that accurate?
Yeah, all right. That's all right. Yeah, 12 right here.
Up on this,
On the top left, okay. That's the ground.
Any other questions at this point? Anybody in the audience have a question? Okay, let the record show that.
That's our case.
Mr. Chairman, I have one quick question. They described the fence, do you know the fence color, the vinyl fence?
I don't believe we know the color yet. I believe that was subject to
Whatever you want.
Yeah, I think at the last meeting, we said that the board preferred a white or black, whatever.
Yeah. Do we think we're talking about a beige fence rather than a white fence?
I thought we said beige.
Yeah, white gets dirty.
Yeah. Beige.
Fire water. Unless they want it in investor green.
Okay. I guess the only, I think the only real question that we have is the sign, and the concerns about the sign. If, you know, and I'd like to hear how people feel about it. This is totally different than any other interior lit sign we've ever had. This is not the typical interior lit sign.
I like it.
We have a concern in that if it's exterior lit with spotlights, it's on a corner, a very busy corner. Most of the other signs are in the mid-block or something like that. That's something to be considered. And this is coming from the guy who wrote the sign ordinance. So. The other thing is precedent. And if we give it to them, do we have to give it to everybody else? You can help me out on this, but I think if we have specific reasons why we grant this.
But you also, you treat every application
Exactly.
on its own. And if you were to entertain granting the variance, I think it's incumbent upon board members supporting that to give a reason why they would be voting in favor of that variance.
Right, and that's why I would mention that it's on a corner, that there's not going to be any overflow of the light, that it's in, you know, a certain situation.
Energy extraction.
And plus, we would be approving an LED sign.
How about if it's
LED
north up 71 a ways?
It's an LED sign.
Yeah, but since they're asking for a variance, this is a good thing for us. Since they're asking for a variance, it's considered an interior lit sign, and they're admitting it, and that's the way we look at it. So everybody in town can't turn around now and go to LED signs. They're still considered interior lit, and they'd have to get a variance. So we're not setting any precedent that way. And again, this is a specific application. It's on a very busy corner. It's, you know, and it might be a good opportunity to see how it works out. You know, and see if it lends itself to the type of thing that we want. But that, you know, I'd leave that up to the board. But I didn't want you to be concerned about setting a precedent. And number two, the good news is it's considered an interior lit sign, so we won't have half the people in town going to LED.
And part of the decision-making is you've listened to the testimony. And also, you consider the specific site location.
Right.
So,
Okay. That being the case, is there a motion on this application?
I'll make a motion to pass.
I'll second it.
We should have some conditions.
We went up.
just one thing, we've heard from the opportunity for the public to
Oh,
comment.
that's right. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the audience that is either for or against this application? If so, would you please stand and state your name, address?
Minnie Murphy, 2014 Highway 71. It's all good.
I swear you.
Well presented.
Ma'am, I need to swear you in if you're gonna give a statement. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth tonight proceeding?
All I wanted to say was 4.
That's positive. Now, is there anybody else who's either for or against this application?
Do you want me to stand up and say it?
That's up to you. The bank will probably appreciate it.
So once again, I know you're up before asking a question, now you're gonna.
We vote them down, they'll have a.
Do you swear affirm,
I'm just gonna say for or against.
do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth tonight's proceeding? Thank you.
I give my name again.
Yes, please do.
Yes, please.
Jerry Caden, Magnolia Court.
What's
and
the house number in Magnolia?
2. And I'm for the application. It seems a favorable change for the current site.
Thank you. It's good on appeal, right?
Surprise.
Do you have any
Board
comments?
is, has a motion, I do have some conditions.
All right.
He
Let me, all right, I'll close the public opinion at this point. And we'll directly show there's nobody else who's either for or against this application. Now we'll get back to the we have a motion and a second to accept this. Mr. May is going to
Recommend.
Can we just, excuse me, Chairman, review who made the first and second motions?
I made the motion.
I second.
Mr. American,
Thank you.
second.
Sure.
The sidewalks be replaced on the entire frontage of Warren 71, excluding the newly replaced NJ corner. 2 borough lights be proposed for Highway 71. Use the landscaping plan to address the vehicle overhangs, including emergency vehicles. Garbage pickup, they only be picked up between 8 AM and 8 PM. They provide a revised circulation plan, satisfactory to the fire departments. If site groundwater or stormwater is required to be treated as part of the site remediation or construction thereto, those items will be required and are required by the enforced. The biggest item I have is that the planting plan and buffer area be maintained, and should plants grow or become diseased and die, that they must be replaced. That's one thing we have come up in town, where we have these buffer areas where there is no plan that's enforced. This plan is the plan for that area. Should trees become diseased, overgrown, be removed, they have to be replaced in kind.
And that's in within the buffer area.
In the buffer area. County planning board approval is received. And once again, that they conform to all site remediation requirements. That's all I have, sir.
And the fence color be changed.
Beige.
Beige.
I'll amend my proposal to include the recommendations from the zoning office.
Okay, and I'm sure that's.
I'll second that.
All right,
Question,
sure.
just how many variances are we approving?
2.
Oh, that's right, there's the sign variance.
Sign variance and a design.
And the buffer waiver.
Waiver.
The design waiver.
One
Good,
variance, one
good
waiver.
point. Yeah, I forgot.
The- That's the approval.
And that the sign variance, and we should put in with the sign variance, it's being granted because of the unique situation of its location.
I believe our lawyer recommended that we comment on that when we vote.
Well, we should comment on it now.
But
Yeah.
you put your comment on the record while you vote. That's what I believe you
We
recommended.
can do that.
Right, because we're talking about the conditions now, and then if you're, when you're voting on the application, you give the reason why you're supporting the variance.
And any other conditions in my letter.
All right. We have a motion, second. Roll call, I mean, with roll call, if you want to make some comments while you're granting the variances and the design waiver.
I'm looking for my attendance sheet, excuse me. Councilman Diver.
How come I have?
Can we go up, Ben?
I am for the application, and I am for granting the variances, A, on the signage, because this is low energy usage as well. It is far more attractive than having, you know, I've seen plenty of signs where the lights are on, and one light goes out, and this actually has a pretty long life, and we have some experience with this sort of sign in town, with the sign we put up at the school, which all of the parents love. In terms of, not the grandparents maybe, but in terms of the buffer variance, I also support that in the sense that from that, the initial application to this application, the buffer area has increased dramatically, and I like the fact that with the extra lane, that bank is at least 40 feet away from the property line, the actual end of that building, and that gives a very nice buffer to the residents in the area.
So we have, yes.
It's a yes.
Yes.
Mr. Francolino?
Yes, I'm in favor for the waiver and the variance. I think the relocation of what they did with the building is a lot favorable from the last previous time. And as far as the lighting, it sounds that it'd be a lot better than having a typical signage lighting that they did previously.
Mayor Mechanical?
Yes, I'm for the application as well, and I'm granting the waiver and the buffer. But because of the buffer, it's very adequate, I think it's substantial. And the lighting is to a minimal, and I believe the sign isn't overwhelming either. So I'm for the application.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes, I'm in favor of the waiver and the other. I think that sign's very attractive, and I want to commend these guys. They did a wonderful job on this design. The plantings, the additional landscaping is just very neighbor-friendly.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, I approve both the signage and the waiver.
Mr. Tully?
Yes, I condition my approval on them accepting the testimony and the documentation that they presented concerning the illuminated channel letters, providing a minimal amount of glow or external light at the particular location.
Mrs. Eilenberger?
Yes, I'm in favor of the application and also the variance and the waiver. I do think that with the increased vegetation and the fact that we added the bypass lane does give you about 40 feet from the building to the residential neighborhood. And also the sign, because of the location on the corner, I think that would be adequate. And I think the building design, the outside is very attractive.
Mr. Hackett?
I'm in favor of the application. I'm in favor of the waiver. I think the buffer goes above and beyond. I'm in favor of the light. I like the technology, although I didn't realize it was the same technology we use on that new sign in front of the school, which I can't read, so I'm maybe that's good or bad, but I'm in favor of the application.
Chairman Russo-Lisi?
I'm in favor of the application. Also, I think in this particular situation, the interior lit sign being a completely different design, there's less of a chance for glare going on to Route 71 or Warren Avenue. And also the buffer, although it's not 20 feet, it should be adequate, and it certainly improves what's there. I'd also like to thank the applicant. Thank you all for your cooperation. The bank's been a wonderful neighbor for a long, long time. I think the town, everybody I hear is thrilled that you're investing in another spot, and you're leaving that other very nice building there. But I'd just like to thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's nice when you have a good corporate citizen.
Yeah, oh.
It is.
It is. You'd be surprised.
That should be it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All right.